Hi, this is Munson with Munson Music, and we're going to talk about how you could go through a song called Before You Accuse Me by CLAPTON. And it starts on an E major chord. We're going to put the first finger on the G string on the first fret, second finger is going to go to the A string on the second fret, and the third finger is going to go to the D on the second fret. And if you strum all those together, that sounds an E major chord. So we're going to need the E major. But then from E major, we're going to be going to an A major chord. And the way you play A major is first finger is going to go to the D on the second fret, second finger is going to go to the G on the second fret, and the third finger is going to go to the B on the second fret. And if you strum all those together, that makes an A major chord that sounds really, really happy. And then from the only other chord that we need is a B7 chord. And the way you play B7 is first finger is going to go to the D string on the first fret, second finger is going to go to the A on the second fret, third finger is going to go to the G on the second fret, and the pinky goes to the high E on the second fret. And you kind of avoid the thick E on this, and you may find a way where you can kind of take the second finger and actually kind of put them in such a direction as to mute that string. But if you strum all those together, then that makes an E7 or B dominant 7 chord, which sounds kind of nasty. So using those three chords, we actually kind of work our way through the form of the song. So it's going to start on an E major, and another E major, another E major, another E major, and then an A major, another A major, and then we go back to E major, another E major, and then we're going to go to B7, and then the A major, and then the E major, and then the B7, and then we start all that over again for all the verses, which is the same thing as the chorus. Now one thing we could add to that to make it slightly more interesting is one of my favorite strum patterns, which is a down, down, up, up, down, up. So if we did that on all our chords, we'd have the E major with down, down, up, down, E, down, down, up, down, B, down, down, up, down, E, down, down, up, down, A, down, down, up, down, A, down, down, up, down, E, down, down, up, down, B, down, down, up, down, B7, down, down, up, down, A, down, down, up, down, E, down, down, up, down, B7, down, down, up, down, E, down, down, up, down, B, down, down, up, down, E, down, down, up, down, E, down, down, up, down, A, down, down, up, down, A, down, down, up, down, E, down, down, up, down, E, down, down, up, down, B7, down, down, up, down, A, down, down, up, down, E, down, down, up, down, B7, down, down, up, down. So that's another way that you can kind of work your way through the song. And I kind of make it a little bit more bluesy though. Instead of E major and A major, we could actually substitute in something called E7 and A7, or so using dominant 7 chords for kind of bluesy color. And the way you play E7 is actually we put the first finger on the G on the first fret, second finger is going to go to A on the second fret, and that's one way to play E7. Another way to play E7 would be taking the E major that we've already talked about, first finger on the G on the first fret, second finger on the A on the second fret, third finger on the D on the second fret, and taking the pinky and adding him on the B string on the third fret. And that would be another way to play E7. Now for the A7, the way you play A7 is we could take the A major that we talked about, where you got first on the D, second on the G, and third on the B string, all on the second fret. And if you lift off the second finger, which is a dangerous finger, then that makes an A7 chord, which is kind of bluesy. Another way that you could play an A7 chord is to take the A major that we talked about earlier, where you got one on the D, second finger on the G, third finger on the B string, is kind of the party on the second fret, and taking the pinky and adding him on the high E on the third fret. And that would be another way to play A7. So we kind of took the A7 and the E7 and substituted those into our form with the strum pattern. We have the E7. So we have E7 down, down, up, down, 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 A7 down, down, up, down, A7 down, down, up, down, E7 down, down, up, down, E7 down, down, up, down, E7 down, down. A7 down, down, up, down, B7 down, down, up, down, B7 down, down, up, down, up. So that would be another way to kind of work your way through the form. Now a lot of times I like using some other chords for the B7 and the A7. Another way that you could play a B7 and an A7 chord is for the B7 you could take the first finger and put them on the 7th fret. Second finger is going to go on the or across the entire 7th fret. It's kind of a bar. Second finger is going to go on the G string on the 8th fret. And third finger is going to go to the A string on the 9th fret. And if you strum all those together, then that's a B7 chord in a different place. So now we're kind of using the bar B7. And if we took that shape and slid it down to 5th fret, you'd have a bar over the entire 5th fret. The second finger's on G on the 6th fret. Third finger's on the A on the 7th fret. Then that would make it an A7 chord. So we could use that B7 and that A7 instead. And what we're really doing is we're taking the E7 shape that we talked about, and now we're kind of moving that as a bar. And it just so happens that on the 5th fret you're playing an A note on the low E string, so that makes that an A7. And then on the low E on the 7th fret is a B note, so that's what makes that a B7. So you could actually use that bar shape to kind of play any 7 chord that you ever needed. You just have to find what note it is on the E string. But if we use those for the B7 and the A7 at the very end and kind of kept our strum pattern the same way, we'd have our E7 with down, down, up, down, E7, down, down, up, down, E7, down, down, up, down, E7, down, down, up, down. And we could go to the 5th fret for the A7 if we wanted to. A7 down, up, down, A7 down, down, up, down, E7 down, down, up, down, E7 down, down, up, down, E7 down, down, up, down, A7 down, down, up, down, E7 down, down. So that would be another way to kind of work through the form as kind of a bar exercise. Another way to play this song would be using what I call blues licks, which sounds a little bit more like what they're doing actually in the song. And for this we'll be substituting in something called the E lick for our E7 chords. And so the way you play an E lick is you take the first finger and put them on the A string on the 2nd fret. And then we're going to take the pick and do just a 2-string strum over the E and the A string. So we're just kind of doing a down up over E and A together with the first finger. And then the third finger is going to go to the A string on the 4th fret, and we'll do a down up there over the same 2 strings. And that's what I call the E lick. And it sounds kind of bluesy, especially if you think long shorts with your down ups. You'd have like long, short, 1, 1, 3, 3, 1, 1, 3, 3, long, short, short. So for every 2 licks that we're doing would be one of the down, down, up strum patterns. So if you're counting beats, then on the E lick you'd have kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But then instead of the A7 chord, you could play an A lick. So if you took the first finger and put them on the D string on the 2nd fret, and kind of did a down up over the A and the D string instead. And if you kind of miss and hit the E, that's okay, because that's actually technically kind of part of it. It doesn't sound too bad. But if you try and aim for the A and D, that'll give you a really clear sound with this. And then we're going to take the third finger and go to the D string on the 4th fret. So it's a little weird because the A lick you're moving on the D string, the E lick you're moving on the A string. But anyway, so we could use the A lick for our A chords. So if we're counting beats on that, we got A, 2, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, and when we go back to the E, then we can do the E lick on the A, or put the first finger on the A string for the E lick. So then we have the E licks going 1, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4. And a lot of times using this particular way, I like doing the B7 bar and going just down up, so but kind of a swing down up, that long short that we were talking about. So if you kind of do long down, up, long down, up, long down, up, long down, up. So kind of long short, right? Long short, long short, long short, long short for your B7. And then for the A7, if we do the same thing, we got long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short. And then there's something, the last 2 bars where we've got the E7 and the B7, you could kind of double time on that a little bit and then make it a little bit more interesting. So for instance, like for those last two bars, which are normally called the turnaround because they turn you around to start the entire piece over again, for the turnaround at the very end, you could do the E lick one time, and then you could do one A lick, and then you could do one E lick. And then what I like to do is I'll go to the other B7, the repositioned B7 where we're using the open strings, where we got first finger on the D on the first, second on the A on the second, third finger on the G on the second, pinky on the high E on the second. And I'll go into triplets there. So I'll do down, up, but feel it in three. So it's 3 down ups, down, up, down, but you're kind of feeling it in groups of 3. So like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that's a cool way that you can kind of do the turnaround at the very end. We'd have E lick, A lick, E lick, and the B7 with a triplet is kind of one way to do it. So from the very beginning, going over all that we just talked about, you'd have the E lick, E lick, E lick, E lick, then we go to A licks, more A, then back to E, 2, 3, 4, and more E lick, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we go to the B7 bar, and actually I did kind of a cool trick there, like out of the last E lick that you're doing, you can use the third finger to slide to 9 to set up where you're doing the bar. So that third finger is kind of like, what I'm thinking is I'm going first finger, third finger, slide, got to get to 9 so I can lay in my bar for the B7. But so we got the E licks, right, and more E licks on that particular part, and then on the last one, I'm kind of sliding up to get the B7 with down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, A7 down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and then turn around for the 1 E lick, 1 A lick, 1 E lick, and then the B7 with the triple. Now, to make that even more interesting, you can add in some things I call E lick variations, where you take the E lick that we're talking about and then kind of mix that up. So a lot of times I think of this as left-hand algebra or something. But so what we're doing at the very beginning, we're going 1, 1, 3, 3, 1, 1, 3, 3, using our first finger on the A string, right, and then kind of playing the E and A as a 2-string strum. But something else you could do is instead of thinking 1, 1, 3, 3 with the left hand, you could think 1, 1, 3, 1. So you could have 1, 1, 3, 1, 1, 1, 3, 1, 1, 1, 3, 1, 1, 1, 3, 1, 1, 1, 3, 1. It's kind of a variation of the E lick. Another variation you could do is if you take the third finger and do them on the low E instead of the A string. 1, 3, 1, 1. Kind of a cool lick too. Another lick that we could do as a variation is we could use the pinky on the A string. So we could go 1, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, which kind of gives you a nice little moving blues bass line. So 1, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 1, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1 down, up, 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 down, up. Which is kind of cool too because one of those licks would actually equal a bar. So you'd have like, if you're counting beats, you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So then you have the A lick, and you can do all these variations for the A lick too. And then back to the E lick. B7, A7, E lick, A lick, B7, triple lick. Now, something else you can do. Oh, well, actually, another variation. Just while we're on variations, one of my favorite variations is actually a little tricky. But like if you take the second finger and put them on the low E string while you're kind of thinking E lick. and do a down on that, you can take the third finger and do what's called a hammer-on to the 4th fret on the E string. So if you kind of play second finger on the 3rd fret on the low E string with a down, and then take the 3rd finger and kind of put them on 4th fret, that kind of gives you a nice little double note thing on one downstroke, which is kind of weird if you haven't done that before. But anyway, so hammering on to 3 in the left hand. So, and this is all on the low E, so you got down, so actually, kind of sounds like this, as kind of a little piece of an E lick, but what I really like doing is I'll do the down up on one, and then do that lick, and then go back to one on the upstroke. So, all together, you got it down on just the first finger, so 1, 1, just like the other variations we're doing. And then 2 is going to go to the low E on the 3rd, you hammer on to 3, and then you go back to 1 on the upstroke, which is kind of weird, but that's one of my favorite variations. So you'd have down up with 1, 1, and then down with 2, hammer on 3 on the low E, and then up on 1. So you got down up on 1, down on 2, hammer on to 3, 1, 1, 1, down, hammer on to 3, 1. That's what you're thinking in the left hand. The frets you're actually doing the hammer on is 3rd fret and the 4th fret, which is a little weird. I know we're thinking left hand fingers, but like I said, it's kind of like Munson algebra for blues licks. But so you've got the E lick all together. Can be a very cool variation too. And sometimes those 2, 3 hammer-ons can sound really good back to back too. For instance, I think that's a really cool variation too. So there are all kinds of ways that you can mix up this form, or you could invent your own E licks or E lick variations. So from the beginning, using some of the variations we talked about, we got the E lick, more E lick, another way that you could kind of work your way through that form. Now if you're really adventurous and the bars are feeling good, one thing that you can do is, for instance, we could take the B7, and a lot of these variation sounds that we're doing with our 1st finger and our 3rd finger and our 4th finger using the open strings, you can actually simulate as a pinky exercise. So this would be very adventurous, right? But you could kind of take the B7 and do the down up, and take the pinky and go all the way to, wow, we're setting the B7 bar up on 7th fret. You'd be doing the pinky to the 11th fret on the A string, which is a pain in the butt. So you'd have like your down with the chord, and use your pinky to 11th fret on the A to get the E7 sound. For this kind of thing with the bar, this can feel kind of straining. So one thing that actually a couple things that you can do to make the bars a little bit easier. First of all, especially when you're working with the pinky, if you go higher head angle with your guitar, that makes the biggest difference, I think, in how you kind of position your hand. Something else you might want to try is experimenting with where your thumb is behind the index finger. It doesn't necessarily have to be straight behind it. You can think at an angle and kind of hinge some of the pressure. So you may want to experiment with some of those. But we could do a lot of these same E licks with the pinky. So that's kind of our 1, 1, 3, 1, right? And then we could do the 1, 1, 3, 1, 1, 1, 3, 1. Or we could do the 1, 1, 3, 3. But now it's a 2, 2, 4, 4, right? Well, that was what they were on too. Or you can get the walking bass line. This gets interesting. Or you could kind of use a 4th finger or pinky slide on the low E string from 10 to 11 to simulate the hammer-on sound that we're doing. So like 1, 1, 3, 4. We were doing 2, 3, right? But now you're going 3, 3, 4, slide 3, like with the bar. And you can use the stretch to kind of get the walking bass. something else you could try and add to it. Something else that I like to do is, a lot of times at the very end, like we talked about those last 2 bars, there's something called the turnaround. In the turnaround, a lot of times instead of using the chords, like doing the E lick one time, the A lick one time, the E lick one time, and then the B7 with the triplets, another way you could do the turnaround is using something called a turnaround lick. Now, a turnaround lick is basically like a lick that substitutes for those 2 bars. So one of my favorite ones, and actually you can kind of almost use this for the intro too if you wanted to, is you play the low open E, and then we go to the G string and play it open, but then do a hammer on the 1st fret. So you got open E, hammer on the G from open to 1st, and then high E open. It's kind of the first part of that lick. And then from there, we're going to go to 3rd fret on the B, and then play open B, and then play 2nd fret on the G, and play open G, and then we're going to play 2nd fret on the D. So all together from the beginning, this is kind of crazy, but we got open E, open, 1st fret is a hammer on the G, open E, and then on the B string we got 3, and then open B, and then on the G we got 2, and then open G, and then we got 2 on the D string, and then after that, then we're going to walk up the A string, open A, and then 1st fret on the A, and then 2nd fret on the A, and then you'll kind of be set up if you do that last walk, open, 1st finger, 2nd finger, you'll be set up for a B7 chord, and then we're going to throw in an up, down on the B7 chord. So all together from the beginning with that lick, you got open E, G to G sharp, hammer on, or to open G to 1st fret, hammer on. Open E, and then we're going 3rd fret on the B, open B, 2nd on the G, open G, 2nd on the D, and then open A, 1st fret on the A, 2nd fret on the A, and then the B7 with the up, down, up. So all together we got that was pretty intense. So that's one of my favorite turnaround licks, but like I said, you could actually kick off the tune that way too. So open E, oh, and the notes you're playing, you're going E, G, G sharp, open E, D, B, A, G, E, A sharp, B, and then the B7, up, down, up. So let's do that one more time. You got open E, or the low open E, G, G sharp, open E, D, B, A, G, E, A sharp, B, and then B7 with the up, down. Those are kind of the notes you're actually playing with that. So all together, with a lot of the things that we've been talking about, you may would take the tune from the beginning using the turnaround lick as an intro. You got E licks, E licks, but then we're going to go to the A licks. A licks, back to E licks, E licks, A licks. End of the song, what you want to do is you want to take the E7 chord that we were talking about and probably just go crazy on it. And what I like to do is I'll do a big down and then kill it to kind of let everybody know that the song is over. So anyway, that's the basics of how you would play Before You Accuse Me by Eric Clapton. So good luck!